All right, so we spoke too long about Batman, which is our favorite hero. So hello everyone, welcome to my talk, which is quite unusual actually, because normally I do a lot of coding and I mess with demo gods. But this time I'm going to talk about a bit different things. So if you assumed without reading the abstract that the talk's going to be about Spring Data or CDI query or even JBoss Forge, which generates everything for you, you can leave the room and basically enjoy the great food here. The talk will be about 3 of my personal experiences which kind of helped me to improve as a developer or as a person. So my name is Bartosz Majsak. During the night shifts, I contribute to open source a lot. I write code for JBoss Arquillian. Anybody heard about JBoss Arquillian? Oh, it's cool. A lot of people. Who is using it, by the way? All right, a bit less. Okay, so, but during the daily job, I work as a consultant. So it's quite unfortunate conference because I heard about a lot of bashing about consultants. But what I do during the day is just Java development. And actually, being in consulting business is very cool because there is a lot of diversity. You can learn about a lot of business domains and code a lot of different applications. But the problem is that sometimes you're going to face some weird framework problem. ABC, I won't really throw the names. Or you're going to deal with some spaghetti code or wrap your head around some sort of weird exception handling. And then you actually look like this. Because it's like, what the hell I'm doing here? Is it really what I was studying for like 5 years? Is it this cool stuff I was waiting for? Is it really like having 5 years of experience? Or is it really like having 10 times of half a year of experience? I mean, obviously we can think about changing jobs, but the reality is that legacy will hit you sooner or later. How many of you are using Pomodoro technique? Please raise your hand. Not so many. That's good, because if you think about Pomodoro technique, this stuff is actually designed for forcing you to do stuff. And I mean, should I really be forcing myself to code? I love this stuff. I shouldn't really think about some additional technique to do this commitment to write some lines of code. So the first aspect of my talk is about this. It's not really the hidden message below the threshold that you should jump out of the hill and just end your poor coder's life. It's about self-development. So we have a plethora of resources out there in the web where you can find a lot of knowledge. And we have Coursera. Anybody's using Coursera? It's very cool stuff because you can learn algorithms, you can learn cryptography, and so on and so forth. We have Stanford Online, we have edX where there is crazy stuff from MIT, we have Khan Academy, Code Academy. But if you are a lazy guy like me, I kind of enjoy just laying on the sofa and watching stuff. So you can go to InfoQ or Parlays and you find a lot of high-quality talks. And don't tell me that you don't have 1 hour every week just to watch the good presentation, because I bet most of you are watching Walking Dead and you're just waiting to something cool is going to happen. I bet it's not going to happen. So if you have these 45 minutes to just watch Walking Dead, just switch to Parlays, because this is the source of knowledge. And Walking Dead is just damn boring. All right, so we went to Coursera, we learned about reactive programming, we learned about maybe the data structure called Hungarian tree. But the problem is we go back to the daily job and actually we probably will gonna lose the knowledge because we need to practice somehow. So if you ask clean coders or zealots of software craftsmanship, they will say you like, hey, you should do kata. But I mean, if I think about kata, I see this. I mean, this is what it is. Don't get me wrong, it's a very good thing for running social events, to pair with your buddy, to basically learn from each other. But we are now in self-development zone, so we are kind of selfish. And I mean, writing stuff over and over again on your own kind of misses the point, does it? So we have better ways. We have Project Euler, Anybody's heard about it? But there is another very interesting website which deserves, in my opinion, more love. And it's called Sphere Online Judge. It's a spoi.com. So they have like more than 3,000 algorithms or algorithmic problems you can solve. And obviously you can solve it in Java, but if you are a bit cooler, you can write it in Scala. Or even if you are a bit in the hipsterish way, you can write in Haskell. Or even in Erlang, or maybe in Ruby, but yeah, Ruby is not cool anymore, is it? Maybe Clojure, we will hear some cool music out of Clojure tonight. Maybe Python, and actually, I checked yesterday, they even have brainfuck. So I mean, whatever kind of polyglot language you want, you go there and just solve the problems. But, as I said, this is a very selfish area. There will be a moment when you will need to get out of your comfy coding basement and probably consider spreading the knowledge. And this is where we go to the public speaking. Or not necessarily public speaking, because public speaking is kind of stressful. I mean, it really requires some courage and preparation. I'm not really that prepared today, but nevertheless, let's blame the beer. But this is rewarding. But what you can do, you can actually start very small. You can start some technical talks in your company, and just between the buddies, you know, nobody will bash you that you don't know anything you are talking about. But the idea is that not only you talk about stuff so people can learn, but as the quote says on my slide, when one teaches, two learn. The trick is that if you prepare stuff for a presentation, you will learn a lot, because you need to think about how to explain this stuff to somebody that it will be easy to understand. Because if I explain some testing stuff which I'm passionate about, I tend to use a lot of shortcuts because stuff is obvious. But if you think about how to spread the knowledge to somebody who is not really familiar with it, then you learn a lot. So my personal experience, like we ran the Git workshop, I was quite, not really advanced, but kind of experienced Git user. But I thought, hey, let's do the advanced workshop. So we sent the abstract, we basically designed the workshop for 1 day. And back then I was a bit like, everybody's saying that Git is offline, but like every second day I need to go to Stack Overflow. So is it really offline? So I read the books, I actually read about all the plumbing commands, and currently I think I know way more than I used to, and people were very happy about the workshop on its own. So, but the main point is, you shouldn't give up. I mean, if you really like talking and you like spreading the knowledge, you don't give up. I mean, this is my DevOps submission. So I was trying hard, never really get to the keynote, maybe in like 5 years. But that's the point, never give up. And the third thing is something which actually combines all the things I've mentioned so far together, and this is open source. How many of you are contributing to open source? Please raise your hands. Not so many, that's good. Or not really, but that's good for the talk. So I was actually thinking about what does the contribution to open source mean? Is it really pull requests with the code? Not necessarily. I mean, if you open the Jira issue, it's already the contribution. I mean, okay, it's just complaining about stuff. So maybe if you open the Jira issue, you should attach the test which is failing. That will be useful for me so I can reproduce it easier. It's also improving the documentation. It's also helping with translation of guides like we have on arquillian.org. We have like 11 languages, including Chinese. It's also about making graphics. I saw the tweet on Twitter by a girl who is a graphic designer, and she wrote, hey, I can't code, but I can make logo for your open source. I didn't put her Twitter handler because she might get a bit busy. But I was asking myself why people do not contribute. And the main thing, it's fear. It's a fear factor. So people like myself, before I started, are afraid that maybe they are not the most brilliant programmers, or maybe their ideas are just crappy, or they can't code at all. I mean, you shouldn't think like this, because if you think like this, you might have the impostor syndrome. And impostor syndrome is a psychological term describing a person who cannot internally celebrate his own achievements. So he thinks he's fraud. That even though all the other guys are saying, you are so cool, you're a great developer, your code is cool, he's thinking like, no, it's not, I'm just bad. They are just talking some weird stuff. So don't be this guy. Try to contribute. If the open source community you choose gonna bash you, it's wrong. So you just leave it and they're gonna die anyway. But there are a lot of open source communities which will be more than happy having you just sending like fixed tests or whatever. And on the other hand, I was also asking myself why people do contribute. So I asked a bunch of my friends. Maybe not so famous, but I will just quickly introduce them. So Tom Bujak is a friend of mine who is living in Bern. He wrote a P2 Maven plugin. So if you are from Germany and work on OSGI, Eclipse stuff, P2 is for you. Alex, this guy is actually everywhere. He talks about Java EE. He talks about NoSQL. He wrote NoSQL unit. He also contributes to ASCII Doctor. And I asked also Tom, which is a Java fellow of my company. He's a creator of CDI query, so maybe he can borrow the title for the next year and show you some code. And Henrik, who is a guy who writes Spring, Scala, and Apache Camel. I won't put the names on the quotes, but you can read it through. And what you can distill from that, there are a few things. First of all, it's about self-realization, and it's about the feel that you create something important. But it's also about learning from each other, and that's the main point. You can learn a lot from each other, and you can actually grow way quicker than by solving some algorithmic puzzles. And also it's about networking. Actually, I attended Hacker Garden this Tuesday, and I met the guy who is actually pushing the definition of contributing to open source to the next level. It's like contribution for a greater good. And this is Michael Vorburger, if I pronounce it correctly. He's contributing to Mythos, and I would like to invite him on stage just to tell you what it is about. But before I do it, it's on AngularJS, so we all should contribute. Please give a warm welcome to Michael. He's going to spread a word about his own project.
Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me all right? Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Bartosz, for having me up here.
My pleasure.
We met just before yesterday at the Hacker Garden, where I proposed to do a day of hacking on Mythos. So in the topic of this talk, what I do for kind of personal development, if you want to call it like this, is contribute to creative hacking on a microfinance open source platform for microcredits, for those of you who have heard about it. This is a humanitarian open source project. There's a number of such projects out there. This one is in the financial space. There's others that are in the health space, disaster management space. I can give more names to those of you who are interested in it. If you want to switch to the next picture.
Sure.
This software is Java-based software, like along the technical lines of what many of you are probably working on: Spring, Hibernate, REST API, very cool AngularJS front end, to which I contribute because I'm trying to use a little bit of my creative hacking energy in addition to finding out about the latest, coolest framework that's now better than the one that I saw last year at Devoxx, at this year's Devoxx, which is all very good. We all have to do this. But a little bit of the time that I use for creative purposes, I try to give to this project to make a real difference in the lives of people like the ones you're seeing up on the slide here. This is a group of women that is receiving a microloan. It's about $50 or something, that I met 2 weeks ago in India when I was there and met them at the Mythos annual community summit. And what this software does, if you want to go to the next picture.
But that's not AngularJS, by the way. It's Struts old stuff.
There's a previous version of the software. The new one is on AngularJS. There's like 2 versions. And this software manages basically these loans. It's used around the world. It's used in India by a number of microfinance institutions. It's used in Africa. It serves something between, we're not quite sure, but something between 500,000 and 1 million microloans. So the bigger installations have big databases. Scalability is an issue. We had a Google Summer of Code project this summer with several students, one of which is here. Andreas is here somewhere in the audience. He contributed to this platform. Another one added scalability and caching to the platform. There's lots of interesting, cool stuff that you can do. If you have any interest in helping us out with this humanitarian open source project, talk to me after this talk tonight, or look it up on mythos.org. Thanks for your interest.
It's on GitHub. It's GitHub/OpenMF, if I remember correctly. It's quite easy.
We got into it in a matter of a few.
Thank you very much, guys. That's all that I prepared, and I'm quite thrilled that I saw so many people here. It's amazing. Thank you very much. Have a good conference.